The galaxy was vast, an endless sea of stars that stretched beyond comprehension. Among these stars, Earth had remained a hidden gem, largely forgotten by the rest of the universe. For centuries, humanity had been confined to their planet, cut off from the rest of the galaxy, unaware of the wars and empires that raged beyond their skies. But as time passed, their isolation would come to an end, and they would face something that would forever change the course of their history. On the distant planet of Saren, an alien colony that was a part of the Freeborn Alliance, the people lived in peace. Saren was a lush world, rich in resources, and a crucial member of the galactic community. They had a quiet existence, surrounded by various alien species and thriving under the protection of the larger galactic powers. Among these powers, the Drakkar Empire was the most feared, brutal, relentless, and all-consuming. Their conquest of nearby systems had left a trail of destruction and despair. No one dared to stand against them. No one, except for the Earthlings, it seemed. The Drakkar were known for their ruthlessness. Their warships were massive, their soldiers terrifying, and their fleets seemed endless. The Freeborn had always tried to stay neutral, focusing on trade and diplomacy, but the Drakkar cared nothing for diplomacy. They cared only for control, and they would soon turn their eyes toward Saren. The galaxy was beginning to understand that their peace was a lie. It had always been fragile, and now the Drakkar were coming to shatter it completely. For weeks, Saren had received warnings of the Drakkar's approach, but the Freeborn Alliance was slow to respond. It had become clear that the galaxy's more powerful forces were either unwilling or unable to stop the Drakkar. The Freeborn leaders knew they could not fight this battle alone. In their desperation, they began searching for any hope, any force that could stand against the Drakkar. There was one name that kept coming up, whispered among those who still held hope: Earth. The word Earth had become something of a myth in the galaxy. There were rumors that a small, isolated planet, once considered backward and primitive, had begun to show signs of technological advancement. Some said they had uncovered forgotten technologies, relics from an ancient war, and had started to develop a fleet of ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was said that they were preparing for something, but what that something was, no one knew. Yet to the desperate leaders of Terran, Earth was their only hope. And so, the leaders of the Freeborn sent out a call for help, a transmission sent across the galaxy, reaching Earth, but also catching the attention of the Drakkar. They had no idea how it would be received, if at all, but the people of Saren could only hope that someone, somewhere, was listening. The transmission was simple, a plea for aid. Saren is under threat. The Drakkar Empire is coming. We have no hope left. We ask for help. The message was sent, but the people of Saren did not know that something far more powerful than they could ever imagine was about to answer their call. Earth, it seemed, had been preparing for something far more significant than anyone could have guessed. Back on Earth, the response to the call for help came quietly, almost unnoticed by the general population. To most people, it was just another piece of space news, another intergalactic emergency somewhere in the farthest reaches of space. But to those who knew, the transmission was a signal. It was a signal that something big was coming. Earth had been preparing for this moment for years. While the rest of the galaxy had forgotten about Earth, humanity had been quietly building a fleet in secret. The fleet was called the Vanguard. It was humanity's greatest achievement, a fleet of ships designed for one purpose: to protect Earth, and, if necessary, to defend the galaxy from the rise of oppressive empires like the Drakkar. The ships were enormous, capable of traveling across vast distances in space with ease. Their weapons were powerful enough to turn the tide in a galactic war, and their crews were trained in combat, tactics, and diplomacy. Humanity had not only kept up with the rest of the galaxy, but they had surpassed it in many ways. The Vanguard was not just a symbol of Earth's strength. It was a statement that humanity would no longer stand idly by while others suffered. Earth was no longer the isolated, forgotten world it once was. It was about to make its mark on the galaxy, and the galaxy was not ready for what was coming. In the quiet command center beneath the surface of Earth's largest military base, General Sarah Drake stood in front of a massive holographic display, studying the incoming transmission from Xeran. She had seen these kinds of messages before, desperate cries for help from distant colonies. Most of the time, the answer was no. Earth was not equipped to handle galactic conflicts. They were just a small planet, too far removed from the heart of galactic politics. But this message was different. This message spoke of the Drakkar, a threat unlike any humanity had ever faced. Sarah had been part of a secret program for years, a program designed to prepare Earth for an inevitable conflict. The Drakkar had been on humanity's radar for some time, and while the galaxy had dismissed Earth as a minor player, Earth had been preparing for the day when they would have to take a stand. This was that day. The time had come to act. General Drake turned to her crew, a mix of soldiers, engineers, and diplomats, all of whom had been working tirelessly on the Vanguard fleet. "Prepare the fleet for launch," she said firmly, her voice resolute. "We're not waiting for permission. We're going in." The orders were issued, and within hours, the Vanguard fleet was ready. The ships were massive, sleek, and deadly, each one capable of taking on a fleet of enemy warships with ease. The human soldiers who would man these ships were not just soldiers, they were warriors, trained for a fight that most of the galaxy had forgotten. As the fleet launched from Earth, Sarah stood on the bridge of the Resolute Dawn, the flagship of the Vanguard. Looking out at the stars, she could feel the weight of the decision they had made. This was no longer just a mission to defend Earth. This was a mission to change the future of the galaxy. And with that, the Vanguard fleet hurtled into the unknown, towards Xeran, towards the Drakkar, and towards the destiny that awaited them. Back on Xeran, the situation was growing worse. The Drakkar fleet was closing in, their massive warships casting long shadows across the planet. The people of Xeran had fought back bravely, but they were outmatched, outgunned, and outnumbered. It was only a matter of time before the Drakkar would break through their defenses and destroy everything in their path. Then, just as the first of the Drakkar ships began to fire on the planet's surface, the sky above Xeran cracked open with a sudden burst of light. The Drakkar forces paused, looking up in confusion and disbelief. They had expected to find an easy target, but what they saw next was nothing short of extraordinary. From the heavens above, massive warships descended, their sleek designs cutting through the atmosphere like knives. They were the Vanguard, the defenders of Earth. They were not just coming to help. They were coming to fight. The battle for Xeran had begun. As the first of Earth's ships landed on the planet's surface, the Drakkar fleet scrambled to respond, but it was too late. Earth's warriors were already on the ground, their weapons blazing, tearing through the Drakkar's ranks with a precision and ferocity that stunned the invaders. The battle raged on, with Earth's warriors pushing the Drakkar back, forcing them to retreat into the skies. But the Drakkar would not give up easily. The war had just begun, and the galaxy was about to change forever. The battle on Xeran had only just begun, and the galaxy had never seen anything like it. The Vanguard fleet, with its cutting-edge ships and highly trained warriors, was pushing the Drakkar back. But despite the incredible display of Earth's military strength, the Drakkar were not a force to be underestimated. Their warships were vast, capable of overwhelming entire fleets with sheer numbers, and their soldiers were ruthless, fighting with the precision of a well-oiled machine. As the human forces engaged in fierce combat on the surface of Xeran, General Sarah Drake stood on the bridge of the Resolute Dawn, her eyes fixed on the holographic battlefield unfolding before her. The Vanguard fleet had proven its strength, but it was clear that the Drakkar were not going to retreat easily. They had underestimated humanity's resolve, but now they were fighting for their survival, and they were going to make sure the cost of that survival would be high. "Status report," General Drake called out to her officers, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around her. "The Drakkar are regrouping. Lieutenant Harris, her tactical officer, replied, his voice tense. Their fleet is deploying reinforcements. The initial assault on their forces is successful, but they're already sending in their heavy artillery. We'll need to make our move now if we want to keep the momentum. Sarah's mind raced as she considered their options. The vanguard had been built for this moment, but they couldn't afford to let the Drakkar gather their strength. If they didn't take decisive action now, they risked the entire mission. Earth's warriors had only one chance to prove their power. If they lost this, it would mean not just the destruction of Hiran, but the collapse of Earth's chance to reclaim its place in the galaxy. Deploy the Hammer Squadron, Sarah ordered, her voice unyielding. I want those reinforcements neutralized now. The Hammer Squadron was one of the Vanguard's most elite units, consisting of specially designed ships capable of breaking through the toughest defenses. These ships were equipped with heavy artillery, advanced cloaking technology, and shields that could withstand even the Drakkar's most devastating weapons. The squadron had been training for this moment for months, and now it was time to see if they could deliver. As the Hammer Squadron launched from the Resolute Dawn, Sarah turned to her communications officer. Send a message to Xiran's leaders. Tell them we are with them, and we will not stop until this invasion is over. Minutes later, the Hammer Squadron began its descent into the heart of the battle. Earth's forces had already made a significant impact, but they needed to ensure that the Drakkar's reinforcements wouldn't be able to land without interference. The Hammer Squadron split into smaller groups, targeting key Drakkar warships in an effort to weaken their command structure and prevent them from bringing in more reinforcements. The Drakkar fleet, initially caught off guard by the human ships, now fought with a ferocity born from desperation. The skies above Xiran were filled with explosions as Earth's warships clashed with the Drakkar's forces. In the distance, Sarah could see the bright flashes of energy weapons and the dark silhouettes of ships falling from the sky. It was a chaotic, terrifying spectacle, but Earth's warriors stood firm. Meanwhile, the leader of Xiran's colony, Chancellor Lyra, watched in awe as the humans fought with unmatched skill. She had heard the rumors of Earth's strength, but to witness it firsthand was something entirely different. The humans were not just defending. They were fighting to win. They had come to Xiran's aid not out of duty, but because they believed in something far greater: freedom. Chancellor Lyra was no stranger to war, having witnessed her fair share of galactic conflicts. But this was different. Earth's warriors fought not for power, but for justice. The more she observed them, the more she realized that this was not a typical military intervention. This was a battle for the future of the galaxy itself. I never imagined humans would be capable of this, Lyra whispered, speaking to her advisors as she watched the battle unfold on the large screen. They are not just warriors. They are something more. Her words, though spoken quietly, carried a weight that none of her advisors could deny. The humans had proven themselves to be more than capable allies, and now Xiran had to make a choice. Would they fully trust the humans and join their cause, or would they continue to fight alone, in the face of overwhelming odds? As the battle raged on, Earth's warriors continued to push the Drakkar back. They fought with a purpose, each soldier knowing exactly what they were fighting for. The fight was not just about defending a colony, but about proving to the galaxy that Earth was no longer a weak, forgotten world. They were a force to be reckoned with, and they had come to take their place among the stars. However, the Drakkar had not given up. In their desperation, they deployed their most feared weapon, the Harbinger, a massive, heavily armored ship capable of unleashing devastating energy blasts. The Harbinger was the Drakkar's final trump card. If the humans couldn't stop it, the entire battle could be lost. As the Harbinger descended through Xiran's atmosphere, Sarah knew the fight was about to reach a new level. She watched as the giant ship entered the battle, its enormous cannons charging with deadly energy. Earth's forces had already sustained significant losses, but they couldn't afford to retreat now. The Drakkar were stronger, but the humans were determined, and they would give everything to win. "Bring everything we have to bear on the Harbinger," Sarah ordered, her voice filled with resolve. "We cannot let it reach the surface. We need to end this now." The Vanguard's fleet moved in formation, their weapons locked on the Harbinger. Earth's warships unleashed a barrage of firepower, their energy blasts cutting through the sky like lightning. The Harbinger fired back, its massive cannons blasting with destructive force, but the Vanguard's speed and precision gave them the edge. The battle was intense, with both sides suffering heavy losses, but Earth's warriors held their ground. They had fought through impossible odds before, and they would do it again. As the Harbinger came into full view, Sarah's heart pounded. The ship was unlike anything she had ever seen, but she couldn't afford to hesitate. With a final, coordinated strike, Earth's fleet concentrated its fire on the Harbinger's weak points. Explosions rippled across the massive ship's surface, and with a deafening roar, the Harbinger was destroyed, crashing to the surface of Exeron in a fiery explosion. The Drakkar, now leaderless and broken, began to retreat. Earth's warriors had dealt them a crippling blow. Exeron was not yet safe, but for the first time, the people of the colony dared to believe that they might survive this onslaught. As Sarah watched the retreating Drakkar fleet, a sense of triumph washed over her. Earth had done it. Against all odds, they had proven their power. The galaxy would never look at Earth the same way again. But even as they celebrated their victory, they knew that this was just the beginning. The Drakkar Empire was vast, and there were many more battles to fight. But for now, Earth's warriors had made their mark, and the galaxy would soon learn that humanity was not to be underestimated. As the Drakkar fleet retreated into the void of space, the air on Exeron was thick with tension. The battle was over, but the war was far from won. The Vanguard's victory had been hard-fought, and many of Earth's warriors lay injured, their ships battered from the brutal engagement. Yet, as the dust settled, and the immediate threat had passed, the people of Saren could hardly believe what they had just witnessed. Earth's forces had arrived like an unstoppable storm, and they had made a powerful statement to the galaxy. Chancellor Lyra, standing amidst the chaos, felt a wave of disbelief wash over her. The Drakkar Empire, which had struck fear into the hearts of many powerful species across the galaxy, had been stopped, not by a mighty galactic alliance, but by a small isolated world that had been long forgotten. Earth had turned the tide in a way no one had expected. "General Drake," Lyra called, walking up to the human leader who stood at the forefront of the command center. "You've done it. You've saved our world." Sarah Drake, though tired, held herself with the poise of a seasoned commander. Her eyes were sharp as she looked out at the battlefield, her mind already calculating the next moves. The retreating Drakkar might have left, but this battle was only one chapter in a much larger war. "We've won a battle, Chancellor," Sarah said, her voice steady. "But the Drakkar are relentless. They will regroup, and they will strike again. This isn't over yet." Lyra nodded. "We won't forget what you've done for us, General. You've proven that Earth is no longer just a forgotten planet. You are a force that must be reckoned with." Sarah's gaze shifted to the horizon, where the Vanguard ships were recovering and preparing for the next phase of the operation. It wasn't just Exeron that needed help. It was the entire galaxy that would soon face the wrath of the Drakkar Empire, and Earth's intervention had just sent a clear message. "We've sent a signal to the rest of the galaxy," Sarah said quietly. "But I fear the true war is only beginning." Back aboard the Resolute Dawn, Sarah looked out through the ship's observation window, her mind still racing. The battle had been won, but there were too many unknowns to feel any sense of peace. The Drakkar were just one faction in a galaxy filled with countless others, and Earth had just placed itself directly in the crosshairs of the Empire. Even now, Sarah could feel the weight of what lay ahead. The threat of the Drakkar was only a small part of the larger picture. Lieutenant Harris walked up beside her, a concerned look on his face. "General, the intel from Xeron's communication array has just come through. It looks like the Drakkar were not acting alone." Sarah's eyebrows knitted together as she turned to Harris. What do you mean? There are signals suggesting the presence of other empires aligning with the Drakkar, smaller factions, but potentially dangerous. We're talking about a coalition of galactic powers that want to expand their territory, by any means necessary. Sarah's face hardened as she processed the news. The implications were clear. This wasn't just about defending Xeron. The galaxy's balance of power was shifting, and Earth was about to become a key player in the coming conflict. Earth wasn't just fighting to survive anymore. It was fighting for its place in the galaxy. Then we need to prepare, Sarah said, her voice now filled with a quiet determination. We'll need more than just ships. We'll need allies, resources, and strategy. I won't let Earth's warriors face this alone. As the Vanguard fleet prepared to depart from Xeron, the human soldiers were greeted by a wave of gratitude and respect from the people they had saved. Xeron's leaders, including Chancellor Lyra, stood in awe of the humanity they had just witnessed. They hadn't just defended their planet. They had shown the galaxy that Earth could stand tall among the stars. The people of Xeron would not forget the courage and strength of Earth's warriors. But despite the victory, Sarah knew that the galaxy's true test was still to come. They had been thrust into the galactic conflict, and now they would have to face the consequences. The Drakkar would regroup, and other factions would take notice of Earth's rise. It wasn't just about fighting anymore. It was about surviving in a galaxy that had never seen Earth as anything more than a backwater planet. We can't fight this war alone, Sarah said as she gathered her officers in the war room aboard the Resolute Dawn. We need to secure alliances with the other free colonies. The more allies we can rally, the better our chances. But we can't waste any time. We'll need to take the fight to them. The officers around her nodded, understanding the weight of the situation. The Vanguard fleet had proven itself on the battlefield, but that wasn't enough. They needed more than military might. They needed the support of other species, other forces in the galaxy that shared their ideals. But not everyone would be willing to join them. Earth's rise had been swift and unexpected, and some galactic powers would see their actions as a threat. I'll reach out to the Freeborn Alliance. Lieutenant Harris volunteered. We've already established communication with their leadership, and I believe they'll be receptive. Good. Make sure we have all the intel we can get, Sarah replied. We'll need to know who we can trust and who's just looking out for their own interests. As the days passed, Earth's warriors began to realize the full scope of what they had stepped into. The Drakkar were only one faction in an intricate web of power struggles that spanned the galaxy. The galaxy wasn't just divided between good and evil. It was a chaotic, often brutal collection of empires, colonies, and factions, each with its own agenda. Some would fight to defend freedom, while others would do anything for control. It was a dangerous game, and Earth had just been thrown into the heart of it. On Xeron, a meeting was held between the leaders of the Freeborn Alliance and Earth's top diplomats. Chancellor Lyra addressed the assembled group with a sense of urgency. We are witnessing the beginning of a new galactic order. Earth's intervention has made it clear that we cannot wait for the storm to pass. We must act now to secure our survival. Sarah stood at the front of the room, her posture strong and unwavering. The Drakkar won't stop with Xeron. Their eyes are on the entire galaxy. But Earth is here, and we are ready to stand with those who believe in freedom. We'll defend what is ours, and we'll fight for those who can't. The room was filled with murmurs of agreement, but Sarah knew that not all of them were convinced. Trust was a fragile thing in the galaxy, and while Earth had earned a momentary respect from the Freeborn, it would take more to secure lasting alliances. Let's make sure we are ready, Sarah continued. The Drakkar will return, and when they do, we'll be waiting. The stage was set. Earth had made its mark on the galaxy, and now it would have to fight to keep it. The galaxy was on the brink of war, and humanity had just become a major player in the cosmic chess game that would decide the fate of countless worlds. As the weeks passed after the battle on Xeron, the galaxy seemed to shift beneath Earth's feet. The Drakkar Empire, though severely weakened by the loss of their harbinger and the retreat of their forces, was not ready to give up. Earth's warriors, though celebrated for their victory, knew that their role in this conflict had just begun. The victory at Xaron had been significant, but it was only a spark in what would soon become an inferno. General Sarah Drake stood at the helm of the resolute Dawn, staring out into the endless void of space. The vastness of it seemed to mock her. The scale of the war she was now leading in too immense to grasp. It had been a hard decision to throw Earth into the galactic struggle, but it was one she knew they couldn't avoid. Humanity's presence in the galaxy would no longer be ignored. Earth had proven it was capable of defending itself, but they had to be ready for what came next. "We've received the latest intelligence from the Freeborn Alliance," Lieutenant Harris said as he entered the command room. He handed over a datapad. "The Drakkar are regrouping, but there's more bad news. They've aligned themselves with the Varkian Collective. We've had encounters with them before. They're ruthless, and their technology is just as advanced as the Drakkar." Sarah took the datapad and read through the intel, her face hardening. The Varkian Collective had been a thorn in the side of many species for decades. Known for their brutal tactics and technologically superior warships, the Varkians were a powerful empire. If they had joined forces with the Drakkar, it meant the stakes of this war had just grown exponentially. "Ruthless doesn't even begin to describe them," Sarah muttered under her breath. "If we don't act quickly, they'll have the upper hand." She handed the datapad back to Harris and turned to her tactical officers. "We can't afford to wait for them to come to us. We need to hit them before they can fully consolidate their power. We'll need to strike hard, fast, and without hesitation." Sarah's mind raced as she thought of their options. The Vanguard fleet was formidable, but the Drakkar and Varkians had reinforcements at their disposal. If they didn't outmaneuver them, it would be a losing battle. She had to be strategic. They couldn't just engage in another large-scale battle. They needed to weaken the enemy, dismantle their command structure, and cripple their ability to organize. "We need to strike at their supply lines first," Sarah continued, her voice filled with purpose. "Without supplies, they'll be vulnerable. Disrupt their ability to wage war, and we cripple their effectiveness." Her officers nodded in agreement, but everyone knew the risks. The Drakkar and Varkians were not going to take such an attack lightly. A quick strike would leave Earth's forces vulnerable to retaliation, but it was the only chance they had. A few hours later, the Vanguard fleet was in motion, traveling through space at the edge of their capabilities. They had identified the location of the Drakkar-Varkian supply hub, an enormous station built within the shadow of a dying star. This was the perfect opportunity to strike. The station was heavily defended, but with their advanced stealth technology, Earth's fleet had a chance to break through before the enemy could react. As they neared the station, Sarah's thoughts remained on the bigger picture. This mission wasn't just about destroying a supply depot. It was about sending a message to the galaxy. Earth was no longer a small, insignificant planet in the far reaches of space. Humanity was here to stay, and anyone who doubted their resolve would soon learn otherwise. Approaching target, Lieutenant Harris said, his voice tense. "We've detected multiple ships within the station's vicinity. They're unaware of our presence, yet." Sarah clenched her fists. The next few moments would define the course of the war. "All ships, prepare for stealth insertion," she ordered. "We strike now, and we strike hard." The Vanguard fleet dropped out of hyperspace, their ships cloaked in the darkness of space. They were invisible to the enemy, but the clock was ticking. They had a narrow window before the Drakkar and Varkians could detect their presence. Sarah watched the holographic battlefield unfold in front of her, her mind calculating every possible outcome. With surgical precision, the Vanguard ships moved into position around the supply station, avoiding detection by the enemy scanners. The human forces began their attack, targeting the station's power grid and key supply lines. Explosions rang out as Earth's warriors made their move, a strike that would cripple the Drakkar and Varkian forces for weeks to come. The station's defenses fought back, but the Vanguard's speed and stealth were too much for them to overcome. The Drakkar and Varkians were caught off guard. Earth's forces quickly dismantled their infrastructure, hitting strategic targets and neutralizing key personnel. The mission was a success, until, of course, the retaliation came. "Enemy ships inbound," Harris shouted. "The Drakkar and Varkians are aware of our presence. They're bringing in reinforcements." Sarah's heart raced. The mission had been a success, but now they were facing the full wrath of the Drakkar-Varkian alliance. The battle was far from over, and Earth's forces were outnumbered. The window of surprise had closed, and now they would have to fight their way out. "Brace for impact," Sarah ordered. "All ships, focus fire on the incoming reinforcements. We can't let them surround us." The battle quickly escalated. Earth's ships were surrounded by the Drakkar and Varkian fleets, now fully aware of the Vanguard's position. The Resolute Dawn and her sister ships fought valiantly, unleashing waves of firepower, but the odds were growing steeper with each passing minute. The Drakkar's warships, with their superior numbers, began to surround the human fleet, slowly chipping away at their defenses. Sarah's thoughts raced as the battle unfolded. They had successfully disrupted the enemy's supply lines, but at what cost? The fight wasn't over, and Earth's warriors needed to survive long enough to turn the tide. "General," Harris called out, urgency in his voice. "We've lost contact with the Hammer Squadron. They're pinned down. We need to assist them, or we'll lose our advantage." The Hammer Squadron was one of Earth's most elite units, and if they fell, it would be a devastating blow to morale. Without hesitation, Sarah made her decision. "All ships, form up and move to assist the Hammer Squadron," she commanded. "We're not leaving anyone behind." With Earth's forces regrouping to aid their comrades, the battle surged forward. As Sarah looked out at the chaos unfolding, she couldn't help but feel a sense of determination rise within her. This war would be a long and brutal fight, but Earth's warriors had proven they were more than capable of holding their ground. And this time, they wouldn't just be fighting for survival, they would be fighting for victory. The battle raged on for hours, the endless chaos of war engulfing the vast expanse of space. The Vanguard fleet had struck hard, disrupting the Drakkar and Varkian supply lines. But in doing so, they had unwittingly triggered a retaliatory strike that had turned the tide against them. Earth's warriors, battered but unyielding, were now locked in a desperate fight for survival. With reinforcements arriving from all directions, the once unseen enemy was closing in fast. They were surrounded. General Sarah Drake stood at the heart of the battle, her eyes fixed on the holographic display in front of her. The situation was dire. Their forces were being pushed back, slowly but surely, by the sheer weight of the Drakkar and Varkian alliance's numbers. The battle had begun with hope that a quick strike could cripple the enemy. But now, it felt like that hope was slipping away. Despite their advanced technology and superior tactics, Earth's fleet was facing a challenge far greater than any they had imagined. "General, we're losing ground," Lieutenant Harris's voice came over the comms, tinged with concern. "The Drakkar's dreadnoughts are moving in. If we don't get out of here soon, we'll be trapped." Sarah's pulse quickened. The dreadnoughts were the Drakkar's largest and most powerful warships, heavily armored and bristling with firepower. The thought of facing them head-on was enough to make even the most seasoned commanders uneasy, but they had no choice. Earth's fleet had to break free. "We can't leave the Hammer Squadron behind," Sarah said, her voice firm despite the situation. "They're our best fighters. We need to get to them, and we need to do it fast." Her tactical officers worked quickly, sending out orders to reposition Earth's fleet. They couldn't afford to take on the full might of the Drakkar and Varkian alliance, but they could maneuver, outflank them, and strike where the enemy was weakest. The Vanguard fleet's superior speed and agility were their best advantages. They had to exploit those advantages now, before it was too late. "Admiral Drake," a voice interrupted from the comms. "This is Commander Juno of the Hammer Squadron. We're pinned down in the outer sector. Our shields are failing. We need immediate assistance. Do you copy? I copy, Commander. Sarah replied, her voice urgent. Hold on, we're coming to you. The Resolute Dawn and the other Vanguard ships made a sharp turn, cutting through the battlefield at breakneck speed, weaving between blasts and dodging the overwhelming firepower of the enemy. Sarah's heart raced as the stakes mounted. The Hammer Squadron was one of Earth's elite units, but they couldn't survive against the combined forces of the Drakkar and Varkian dreadnoughts forever. Time was running out. As Earth's fleet pushed forward, the Drakkar and Varkians began to anticipate their movements. The enemy was getting smarter, reacting more quickly. The Vanguard's signature stealth advantage was no longer a guarantee. Sarah knew they had only one shot to turn the tide. We need to create a diversion, Sarah said, her eyes scanning the battlefield. Lieutenant Harris, can you deploy the decoy drones and draw their fire? Already on it, General, Harris replied. Deploying now. Hundreds of decoy drones, equipped with reflective armor and energy shields, were launched into the fray. The drones created an illusion of an additional fleet, confusing the enemy's targeting systems. The Drakkar and Varkian ships shifted their focus, momentarily distracted by the decoys, giving Earth's fleet the opening they needed. Now's our chance, Sarah said, her voice filled with determination. All ships, engage the Drakkar dreadnoughts. We're going in. The Vanguard fleet accelerated toward the heart of the enemy formation, weaving through blasts of energy and fire as they moved. The Hammer Squadron's position was just ahead, and they could see the telltale signs of their desperate battle. They were still holding their ground, but barely. We're almost there, Sarah said. Prepare for a full assault on the dreadnoughts. This is it. The Vanguard fleet reached the Hammer Squadron, and the combined forces of Earth's warriors unleashed a devastating barrage of firepower. The dreadnoughts, now focused on the incoming attack, found themselves under siege from both sides. The Vanguard fleet's precise strikes targeted weak points in the Drakkar ship's armor, hitting their engines and weapon systems. Despite the overwhelming odds, the human forces fought like never before. The fearsome Drakkar and Varkian fleets, once thought invincible, were now facing a united front. The strategic mind of General Sarah Drake, combined with the tenacity of Earth's soldiers, began to tip the scales in their favor. One by one, the Drakkar dreadnoughts began to fall. The tide of the battle shifted as Earth's fleet gained ground, taking down key enemy ships. The Hammer Squadron, now reinforced, fought with renewed vigor, their precise attacks breaking through the enemy's defenses. General, Lieutenant Harris said, his voice filled with relief. The Drakkar fleet is retreating. They're pulling back. Sarah felt a wave of exhaustion wash over her, but she didn't let herself relax just yet. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Earth's forces had taken a major step forward, but they had also made powerful enemies in the process. The Drakkar and Varkian alliance would regroup, and their next strike would be even more dangerous. Don't celebrate yet, Sarah said, her eyes still locked on the holographic battlefield. We've won today, but the war is far from over. The Drakkar and Varkians will be back, and when they return, we'll be ready. As Earth's fleet withdrew from the battlefield, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of grim satisfaction. They had fought with everything they had, and they had made a difference. The galaxy now knew that Earth was a force to be reckoned with. But Sarah also knew that this victory had come at a cost. Many lives had been lost, and many more would follow before the war was over. The galaxy was on the brink of something far larger than anyone had anticipated. But Earth had proven something crucial in this moment, that they were no longer a forgotten planet at the edge of the galaxy. They were players in this war, and they would fight, not just to survive, but to win. The war had just begun.